not going to read through pages and pages of bio. I'm going to let each of them maybe give you guys 30 seconds to introduce yourself, and then I have a bunch of questions. Don't worry, I know we're running a little bit late, but I'm always on time. 4:10, you guys are out. All right.
Hi everyone, Lindsay Patel. I work with the Trade Programs Branch at the Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade. Yes, I know that's a mouthful, which is why we call ourselves MEDJCT. I started with the political side of Ontario in 2016, and prior to that I worked with the Department of State and with GAC on various foreign service initiatives.
Hi everyone, my name is Orlando, and I'm not the CEO of LumeSmart.
I was going to say.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that. I can't take that credit, but I work with RBC Dominion Securities. I'm an investment advisor. I've been there for going on 6 years. Prior to that, I was with TV. And in another life, I worked in IT. So I did computer programming, software engineering. And I've also had stints in teaching. I taught finance at York. So a lot of my world is around sharing my knowledge, breaking down complex, mostly finance concepts with people. So looking forward to this conversation.
Hi everyone, I'm Jeff Keats with Export Development Canada. I've been at EDC for 18 and a half years. A bit different than Orlando, but in a previous life I worked for a call center for a telecom, and I also was a teacher, but teaching English in Japan, and then I trained teachers. But that was a long, long time ago, but now I'm a lifetime EDCer, dedicated to working with Canadian entrepreneurs. Happy to be here.
So, again, the story happened at COVID. When COVID happened, then I think, you know what, I said computer engineering Iran. I said, let's make a platform and make a board with no borders. So everyone can find, showcase their business anytime they want, because we cannot go to the trade show at that time, right? I just think, okay, let's make it ongoing showcases, and the result is the Global Cleantech Director that I'm going to have a presentation about that today.
Great. So I'm gonna pick on my EDC fellow, just because we actually at Change Connect, we work quite a bit with EDC lately because of the Can Export application at the moment. So really talking about some of how EDC can help some of our small and mid-sized business do export work, and how that will affect kind of our growth plan. So my first question to you, Jeff, is what role does EDC play and what support programs available?
Sure, yeah, that's a great question, Agnes. So EDC, Export Development Canada, we're a Crown corporation, and we're an export credit agency. So we're government-owned, but not government-funded. And our role or our mandate is to help Canadian companies grow and scale internationally. Now people think of an export as a widget crossing a border, but really it could be technology, product, service, directly or indirectly impacting trade. So we've got tons of tools at EDC to help Canadian companies grow and scale, mitigate risks. Things like accounts receivable insurance, which is used to not just work as a risk mitigant for non-payment by your buyers, but also is a sales tool. You can give better terms to potential buyers internationally, but also a financing tool. A lot of banks will give you higher lending value if your receivables are insured versus not. I won't do a whole product, which I promise, Agnes, but we also have various guarantee solutions through Canadian banks to either risk share on loans or to risk transfer on things like semi-letters of credit. We also have a lending arm, we have an investments arm, we provide custom knowledge and advice to companies, but everything we do is meant to help these companies grow and scale. But because we're a Crown corporation, for any of our financing solutions, we are charging market rates. So it's not like a grant, it's not a subsidy, it's not a kindness of our heart. We have to make sure it does make economic sense for us to do it. And to give you a sense of scale, last year under our Cleantech umbrella, we've had a Cleantech focus since 2012. Last year we worked with 500 Canadian companies under our Cleantech umbrella to help them do more.
That's amazing. And I think a lot of these programs, like especially in today's world when we're chatting with our clients around Cleantech or just tech in general, everyone's wondering how do you do more business, right? And I mean, I know personally we have a satellite office in the UK, and you guys connected us with a trade commissioner, and you guys were able, we're taking a meeting with you guys in May at your office. So the extended reach of EDC and your partnership with Trade Commissioner really come in handy for small businesses that may or may not have the local connection. So, I know I'm personally benefiting and grateful for the connection. So for sure, pitch away your product. I'm on board. Lindsay, here's another one for you that I thought was interesting. On the same note, right? I think a lot of small and mid-sized business may or may not know what, the mouthful, the Ontario Ministry of Economic Development and Job Creation and Trade. Tell us a little bit about that. Like, what does that mean in terms of, how can we leverage the ministry to help us grow our business?
We touched on a few things, Agnes. So within trade programs, we work with SMEs similar to EDC to grow their trade share in market. So we do cover all markets worldwide. There are many consultants who cover the global market. We work with companies in a couple of different ways. The primary way is to offer a subsidy for companies to attend trade shows in market. A lot of these events are essential to a sector. Everyone kind of enters the room all at the same time, and we present a way for SMEs to make that affordable for them. The subsidy is 70%, so we take that pavilion cost and cover 70% of the cost for the companies. I think we know today that sales, COVID's been mentioned quite a bit, that sales is really difficult to make those new connections online. We did try online trade shows during COVID, and it was not very successful. So we want to keep putting those SMEs in market and in front of buyers for their products, whatever that product might be, whether it be a widget or software or something other intangible. Another way is to work with in-market buyers. So we work with buyers either in market or here in Canada. So we can send companies down to possibly meet with a group of buyers around a sector, or bring buyers up here into Canada on what's called a buying trip. So if they approach us and want this very specific widget that maybe only a couple of Ontario companies make, we would present those companies to them. That being said, we do also have some one-on-one consulting that we do with companies. There is not a one-size-fits-all approach for companies. So a lot of times SMEs will come to us and say, I'm experiencing this very specific trade barrier, or it might be something as simple as, I've been looking to get in front of this company for a year now and I can't quite make any inroads. So can you help me do that? And we can work with them. We do leverage a lot our in-market offices, as Agnes mentioned. We have trade investment offices across the globe that are co-located within Canadian consulates. So there's quite a few of them. I won't name them all, but they're pretty essential for us to have those kind of boots on the ground.
That's perfect. How many of you guys are looking into trade shows or looking for distributors as part of your expansion plan this year? Yeah, there's a few of you. Lindsay's right there. There's going to be some discussion at 4:15 around networking. I bet you tons of people. You made the most popular girl in the room at 4:15. Orlando,
Yes.
not a government entity, and not a part of LumeSmart either. But how can the public and finance industry sort of support our initiative around Cleantech and pushing that forward? I mean, I know we say we'll stay out of politics, but I know some of the political platform may or may not acknowledge, that there is this climate change, right? So how are you able to help advance this initiative?
Okay, so we can easily stay out of politics because I'm in my world is around business, it's around investments. So most of my conversations are talking to individuals as it relates to what they're going to invest in, what business. And every business, if we really simplify it, a business will provide a product or a service. And because it provides that product or service in a better way than its competitors, it gets rewarded. And that's what investors care about in the initial sense. There are primary and secondary reasons for investing. So one of the primary reasons is, what am I getting back from it, right? Am I getting a return? from this, and there are secondary reasons we're going to touch on. I'm going to use an analogy, and then I'll share how the public can play a role. When you eat primarily to survive, but there are secondary reasons around appetite. You might have some preferences around what you eat, but you're going to be eating. So from an investment point of view, we are seeing that individuals, they do want to invest for the main purpose of earning a return, keeping up with inflation. But there are secondary preferences that exist. We're seeing that right now where people will have a specific preference around, I want to vote with my money. I want to vote with my investment dollars. That is where the public or the business needs to ensure that you're communicating the message properly and the story around. And there's certain words are important to me. So when we say clean tech, I think we've been using, well, first we abbreviated technology. We're not even saying technology, we're saying clean tech. And if there is a clean tech, well, is there a dirty tech? So let's talk about technology and break it down, right? The word, technology is sort of like technique, a skill, and the other word, logic is a study of that. So everything around technology to me is innovation, or how do we do things better in an improved way. So what people want to invest in is not necessarily electronics, but how are you as a business doing something better and evolving over time? That is what the public wants. The public wants to know that I'm going to invest in something that primarily is doing it better than the competition. They're not so caught up in the terminology. So I'll give you an example. Might be political, it is controversial in 2025, but Tesla, people weren't investing in it because it's a clean tech company. It was a story that they bought into, right? And the branding. So as a business, to attract capital, to attract the public attention, and to get the buy-in from advisors, that's the part that they need to sort of, one, realize and not shy away from. Remember you're a business. Remember that a business solves problems. So what problem are you solving? What are you improving with society? And if you are adding value, then capital will come and will find you.
Right, and that makes sense, right? Like, no one's gonna leave their money in the bank, right? So they're gonna invest their money where they see the most ROI, and if it happens to align with my social cause, that's even better, right? So that makes so much sense. So our leader, what sparks the creation of Global Clean Tech Directory? I know that's been happening in the background, and it's robust. Why is it now the right time to even make it a more bolder, made in Canada platform to lead these green tech companies into a global marketplace?
Sure. So as I mentioned, when COVID happened, I started to think about the world with no borders. I worked about 2 years in this platform. And now this platform can help you to find the clean tech you are looking for based on the category and continent. For example, you can say, I'm looking for renewable energy at Asia. And those companies listed with us will be shown in the platform. And each company has their own page. They have content, they have Q&A, they have an area you can contact them directly. And now I am working on integrating it with AI, and I'm working on providing a multi-language chatbot for each company. That means each company could have 24 hours, 7 a week, AI assistant in any language they want to serve them. So this is my goal, and I asked a program like in partnership with City of Richmond Hill, and the program was with they do some research for me and with eCampus, and now my application is approved for another research with eCampus. My good friend from eCampus are sitting here. So our friends who are going to have pitch, it's good to talk to them, take advantage of them. They are here. And also, my application recently approved to work with iPhone for IP. So this is another child. So if you don't stop me, if something happens, I make something because I scared from that thing happening. I don't want to look at that. So I create something I want to look at that. So I don't want to see that. So anyway. this idea comes at that time, and now, because of we are looking to diverse trade, this is the unique tool, because we are looking for diverse trade, and my goal was to support more SME and small businesses who cannot go to the exhibition and trade show outside. They could have the online, ongoing trade show.
Nice, very good. So let's go back, Jeff, to EDC for a second. Like, we talked quite a bit about expanding outside Canada. Any particular market that you see interested in clean tech, Canadian clean tech? Any opportunity, any knowledge sharing around destination?
Yeah, sure, Agnes. So, as a lot of people probably know, I mean, the U.S. has been a massive destination for Canadian exports, including Canadian clean tech. Historically, 75% of Canadian clean tech exports have gone to the U.S. Recent situations have changed that, not just tariffs, but also even some of the pulling back of some of the funding programs in the U.S. Things like the Inflation Reduction Act, some of the funding flowing from the Department of Energy. A lot of that has paused, which has leading companies, clean tech or otherwise, to look at other markets. And I'm going to be very generic to start. But there's three very large areas of opportunity for Canadian companies, clean tech or otherwise. The first very broad bucket is the Indo-Pacific, or as we call it, the Indo-Pac, which is a massive market. I'm sure also Lindsay and her team are looking at that. I see Vladana from Global Affairs Canada, the Clean Growth Hub back there. They're also looking at it. A whole Team Canada approach on Indo-Pacific. Why Indo-Pac? Well, by 2040, roughly half of the world's business or trade will be done in those markets. But there's also tremendous energy transition and clean tech opportunities in Indo-Pacific. People look at the States and they look at the Inflation Reduction Act and the hundreds of billions of dollars that would have been spent there had things not changed. If you look at the Indo-Pacific, there are trillions of dollars that will be spent on clean tech and energy transition the next 5 to 7 years. Now, it's going to depend on what business you operate in, whether it's clean tech or clean tech adjacent. Some countries like Australia, there's areas like battery energy storage, which is very trendy there. In markets like South Korea, there's different battery technology that's also very, very trendy there. But in general, Indo-Pacific is a massive market. I would also say there's opportunities in both Europe and the Middle East. There's lots of infrastructure build happening there, which will lead to opportunities, but also, again, lots of clean tech energy transition needs in those markets. We also have CETA, so the free trade agreements with Europe. And Europe does a very good job in the clean tech space of doing both the carrot and the stick approach to incentivize companies to adopt clean tech or new technologies that are more efficient. So, and then the third area is, again, very generically speaking, Latin America. There are, Lindsay knows better, I think 7 or 8 free trade agreements right now with Latin America and Canada. But not only that, Latin America, a lot of the larger corporates there have shown to be very open to partnering with or buying from emerging tech and clean tech companies. They are very open to working. They're early adopters. We've also partnered with a couple of large LATAM companies on introducing them to very early stage companies, and they are very open to it. So it's going to depend on the nature of your business, but there's so much potential out there. The addressable market is massive, and we're really encouraging companies to look beyond Canada and the States for some of those sales.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. So, Lindsay, I'm going to get you to add on top of what Jeff is saying. So what are the priority sectors or markets that Ontario provides supports for?
Yeah, so I pretty much echo everything that Jeff has just mentioned. We do see a lot of desire in South America to work with SMEs and emerging technologies, particularly in Brazil and Chile for water. We know water is a huge sector for Ontario, especially within clean tech. It's my number one subsector that I work with. I typically just cover the US market. Right now I'm also covering Europe, and this has nothing to do with the tariffs, just due to personnel changes internally. So, and I also, I don't cover the other markets, but I would definitely agree we see a lot of clean tech shows, at least, coming out of the Indo-Pacific. And I see a lot of my water companies as well working with Middle Eastern companies. There's a lot of solutions that are needed there in regards to water and in clean tech, and they are willing to work with really anyone. So it's a good market entry for SMEs. So typically, the way that we're kind of structured internally is we're considered market experts, not sector experts. We do have another branch within our ministry that works directly with the sector. So they just work with the sector internally here in Ontario. So while I said I cover the US, we have colleagues who cover Middle East and Africa, Japan, South Korea, and one who does Southeast Asia. And most of these markets, we cover all sectors. However, because of obviously the importance for trade and the size, Europe, the US, and China are all broken down by sector. So within the US, I myself just cover Cleantech. So there are other opportunities within the US for ICT companies or life sciences or advanced manufacturing, but I can't speak as well to those simply because those aren't my areas of expertise, but I can refer you over to people who might cover those sectors or those markets. I don't want to touch too much on the U.S. tariffs right now because I know that's coming in questions, but the name of the game right now is definitely diversify. So if you are in the U.S. and you are operating in the U.S., I highly encourage you to look at other markets. We can have a deeper discussion one-on-one about how to strategize and which markets to target specifically for your company. But yes, if you're primarily in the U.S., don't keep all your eggs in that basket. Yeah.
Can I add one thing as well? So one of the things that we're seeing is investors have been vocalizing and specifically asking to have less exposure in North America over the last, and this was sort of early March, late February when the tariff issues was mostly Canada and the US. There is more appetite now for international exposure. So people are wanting to have their funds invested in companies that are in Europe and in Asia. So companies like, so a lot of these usually start with publicly traded companies, right? They're easier to get into. The Ferraris, the Nestle's, the L'Oreal, but there is more appetite than we used to see before. Last year was always mostly U.S. Then domestic because there was local bias, and rarely did they want. We would have to indicate, don't put your eggs in one basket, get some international exposure. There's a real shift right now, so it ties into from a business point of view. Capital is looking for international cuisine. Let's put it that way.
But it's impressive.
It's like a volumetric food.
I love that analogy. So that's our experience too. When we talk to a client, it is that international cuisine that is definitely taking some traction. Because I'm with you, because last year when we talk about export and growth, like it's all about the focus is U.S., right? The conversation is U.S. You want to bring it to Indo, because I want to push Indo-Pacific as well, and like they don't even want to talk to you. They're like, I'm making good money out of U.S. Let's go with what I know. And this year, I think half of the same group of people is like, hey, let's talk about India. Let's talk about UK. Let's talk about Germany. Like, so I'm like, oh, this is great. So absolutely seeing the same thing. But let's get to the bottom of, one of the topic up there is the tariffs, okay? Not U.S. tariff in general, but just tariffs. Does the current Orlando, does the current tariff environment put Canadian Cleantech company in a more competitive space, you think?
It's a good question. Okay. The current, how current is the tariff? Because it's a moving target. So it depends on which hour you're talking about in terms of the tariffs. But here's how I look at the tariffs in general. I think the tariff situation is more so putting the U.S. at a disadvantage, and I would say maybe specifically putting Canada at an advantage. So I think that what's happening with the back and forth and the seesaw around tariffs and just governance and leadership is that it has created a mistrust, and trust is the most important thing around finance and business. So what it really is doing is that if you have a country or a business that you've got two individuals somebody from the United States, somebody from another, let me just say, the other big power, China, saying let's do a deal, I think people will struggle to trust that the world will be kept from what's happening right now in the United States, because they might fear, well, you tell me this today, but next week is a different thing, or when there's a change in government. So I think this is really putting the United States at a disadvantage, and it will open up the opportunity for, I'm not necessarily saying, it's going to create a vacuum. Will Canada take advantage is more the question, but certainly it allows for other entities, regions and companies to take advantage. And I think China, to me, seems to be, they were already spreading their wings strategically. This puts them in a better position, and it should put us as well. So we have an advantage that we can fill some of that vacuum, because we already have a good brand. The Canadian brand is a strong brand globally, but it's just that we haven't necessarily been very vocal and loud and proud and taking advantage of it. So it is something that can be leveraged and taken advantage of.
Yeah, and I think with the right leadership, right? Like keeping in mind that, enemy of an enemy is a friend, right? So with the right leader at the top, lots of collaboration opportunity can happen. Like I was at a meeting for a not-for-profit this morning, and the U.S. pulled up a lot of their funding, because now they no longer believe in that cause. So, and the brainstorming session around that not-for-profit was, hey, you know what? That allows us to actually do more in Canada. That actually allow us to have an advantage to serve here much better than go with what the U.S. wanted us to do as a KPI, to meet the KPI for that funding, right? So I think it does start at the top. And then I want to go back to you before going back to Jeff, just so. Anything to add around that in terms of the what may be the biggest trade challenges Canadian cleantech company face today, particularly with U.S. tariffs and global competition?
So we're calling it weaponized chaos. I would say that's the biggest thing that companies are having to deal with is uncertainty. It's not necessarily what the end result will be, but for companies that are already working in the U.S., some customers are saying, well, we know that today it is not in effect and it might not be an issue, but we don't know what tomorrow will bring. So some U.S. buyers are just kind of hedging their bets, which is obviously putting a lot of pressure on Ontario companies. It's with this uncertainty, we have a lot of my companies who will remain within the U.S. They have a lot of customers there, a lot of buyers. They're not going to pull out completely. What it is affecting is new business. So SMEs that maybe haven't entered the U.S. at all, or who are trying to gain new customers, have decided to pull back completely. So companies have said, I'm going to look at Europe, or I'm going to look at the Indo-Pacific right now and maybe come back to the U.S. in a few years. And the same even for companies who are already within the U.S. because they kind of can't increase that market share. They have to look outwards because they know they're going to maintain those current customers. We know that they trust each other. They know that our Ontario companies provide a good product. The tariffs might not affect them as much as they fear, so they're going to stick with that company. But a new customer is not going to come in and do business with that same Ontario company, even though they already are within the U.S. So it's really pushing companies to look outward, but it's also causing a lot of companies to kind of sit on their eggs right now. So they're not pulling funding, but they're sitting on any funds they might have. So when I'm reaching out for trade shows and finding out which ones are of interest and can we get you into that market, they're saying, I would really love to go, but I don't know what, again, tomorrow will bring. So right now I'm just going to hold that money in my bank account, which we know happens a lot when recessions are starting or when there's an economic turndown. We just kind of, we hold on to that cash just a little bit longer to make sure that if something big does hit, we're not left with $0 in the bank. So it's just causing a lot more safety. Companies are playing a lot more safe and looking outwards.
Well, the idea of perceived lack of cash flow, right?
Yes.
I think, but let's talk to you for a moment. You built this platform, and we talked a lot about like exposure, collaboration, and so on. So what message do you hope this platform sends to the world about Canadian leadership in clean tech and innovation?
I believe this platform for now, because as you mentioned, it's not just for the US, it's a tariff that's happening everywhere. Like I used the topic, it was just started, so I forgot to edit it. It was better to edit the topic. But anyway, because this is something happening right now, and this brings the opportunity for businesses not to limit themselves by their geography and border. And they can find every other businesses they want to collaborate. Maybe they want to, for example, if a solar company looking for a market, for example, in another country, another continent, they can find them easily. And because we narrow the search, it's not just okay to just show the list of the, for example, solar company in Asia. Then they can narrow the search. They can say, okay, we are looking for example, those are in this location. These, for example, have this specific equipment we want. So they can narrow the search and find exactly what they wanted. And we are working on matchmaking on that. So that matchmaking by AI is going to help them to navigate and search faster. So the AI brings a lot of opportunity to serve better, quicker, and faster for the, because like in the marketplace, we are looking for finding the right link to be efficient, to save our time, to save our energy. So this is what we are, again, efficiency, but not lighting efficiency, time and energy efficiency. Okay, so
I think one last round of questions for every one of you. So let's start with Jeff and then I'll take. Last question is, what resources are available to Canadian company based on the institute you guys work with?
Yeah, so there's tons of resources. I think, one of the silver linings of what's happening now is it's really pulled together Canada, the Team Canada approach, elbows up. And a lot of the institutions in Canada, public and private sector are really putting resources out there. So we've got different resources on our website. We're linking in different resources, whether that's with Global Affairs Canada, the ministry, and others, resources like the Tariff Finder. So I would encourage companies to talk to everyone in your network. So talk to the ministry in Lindsay, talk to your financial advisor and your banker, talk to Global Affairs Canada, EDC, BDC, FCC, all the C's. But there's tons of resources, free knowledge, people looking to do it, but also like EDC, we had a kind of said like a knockoff of Dr. Evil. We announced a $5 billion trade impact program, which sounds like a lot, and it is. It's actually nothing new. We've actually assessed our current book of business. If this uncertainty persists for the next few years across all of our lines of business, our insurance, our working capital, our debt, our equity solutions, we will deploy, we estimate, an additional $5 billion more in support of Canadian companies than we would have if the situation was normal. So a lot of institutions are doing the same thing. So I would just say, reach out, because every institution has different information or resources available, and it's too hard to give a summary right now.
Perfect. I don't know anything? And that was.
Yeah, in general, my message to individuals is we are in that age that there's an abundance of information and resources, but what people need are insights. So I'd encourage you to be resourceful with individuals who are also resourceful. So you're reaching out, not necessarily just being behind a computer, Googling everything, but you are connecting with resourceful people that are able to connect the dots and connect you with individuals that can help to move things forward. So that would be the message. It's not that there's a lack of information that we have to offer from RBC.
That's great. And
Yeah, I would say the resources that Ontario has are very specific to each individual company. So while we have this trade subsidy available within my group, we also have a business advisory services who works with companies domestically, and they have a whole host of funding available to them to grow your business domestically. We have a scale-up service. We also have Invest Ontario. So for anyone who's looking to bring in partners, possibly a partner who's going to build a manufacturing plant here, we have that team that can help them with that. It's really just reach out to me and we'll have to talk about your specific case because they're too numerous to kind of list down names. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, panelists, for helping out today.